Welcome everyone. Today I want to talk about a sneaky trauma trigger that really took me off guard. If you are married to a childhood trauma survivor, you are very aware of some of the triggers that may be occurring in your marriage. However, there may be some that are a little bit more difficult to pinpoint, and because these triggers can be so subconscious to the survivor, it sometimes takes some detective work in order to identify what is really going on when you're feeling those negative emotions come up in your husband. But before we get to what that sneaky one is that I had to learn more about, I want to talk a little bit more about triggers. I want to tell you a little story. And it all starts with me and my friends meeting up for a run an early spring morning, where we have this beautiful park that has this almost 2-mile wide perimeter, paved perimeter. And within this park, there are several dirt offshoots that take you to a creek and you can run over bridges. And it's a really special place to run. But this one morning, I was with my two friends, my one friend Bree and my other friend Jenny, when we decided to take one of those offshoots down towards the creek. And it was really overgrown with bushes at the very beginning of it. And my friend Bree went first, and we could see her all of a sudden just stop. And Jenny and I were chatting, and we came to a stop, and we're like, what is it? What's going on? Is there something in the trail? And Bree tiptoed over to us, and you could tell she had this pent up excitement. And she looks at us and she says, "It's a bear." Now, Jenny and Bree and I are very different people. So let me tell you a little bit about my friend Bree. Bree is a true animal lover. She loves to be outdoors. She's spent a lot of time camping and being outside, and she really knows how to protect herself. Now, my friend Jenny, she is more someone who likes to be in the outdoors, doesn't necessarily really want to touch it, and she is much more comfortable being in her home, and you probably wouldn't be catching her anywhere near a campsite. And I'm somewhere in the middle. I like the wildlife. I can get dirty. I have camped before, but I probably do prefer to go to my bed at night. So the reason that I'm telling you this story is because I want to describe how the three of us responded to seeing that bear. We were very different in our responses. So Bree, being who she is, she gets in her fight position. So she is ready to fight, ready to protect, and is very interested in what this bear is going to do. Now Jenny, she is in flight. She is way far the other way down the trail, about as far as she can get. And I froze. And I was cowering behind Bree in her fight position, ready to see, okay, where is this gonna take us? And I just froze. So what happens with this bear is it saunters up that trail, doesn't even take a look at us, just saunters over this driveway where we were at and goes into this neighbor's yard and just starts chowing on something that it was able to catch out of the tree. So no damage was done. However, I want you to see the similarities between how people respond to danger. And there is usually 3 different responses that you see, and it's very emotional, it's very instinctual, and it's usually the fight, flight, or freeze. So usually you respond in one of the ways that the 3 of us did to seeing that bear. Now let's just pretend that I was a child who ran into the bear, and I knew that it was dangerous, and I just kept running into that bear. And it seemed like every corner that I took, I could either run into the bear or not run into the bear. I started to ask when I was going places if anyone had seen the bear. And a lot of times people would say, no, I have not seen the bear. And then I would end up seeing the bear. And the bear was scary, and the bear was dangerous, and the bear hurt me. Now, you can see how everywhere that child would go, they would constantly be looking and being hyper alert for danger. And this will stick with them. So every crack of a stick, every rock that falls, this child is going to be hyper alert to danger and to express and react to things that aren't dangerous because of the past that they've had. The unfortunate thing is that when children are exposed to danger such as this on a frequent or consistent basis, you can see how this would change your brain, and you would continue to be hyper alert to danger long into adulthood. And there really isn't anything that will produce more triggers in adult life than close relationships. So spouses need to be very aware of what's going on in their husband's brains, because you will accidentally and without even knowing it say things or do things that will be very triggering. So before we get to the sneaky trigger that I experienced and had to learn more about in the last week or so, I want to tell you just a little bit about me. So I am Danielle Sebastian. I am a wife of a childhood trauma survivor. My husband and I were experiencing a lot of things in our marriage that we just couldn't overcome. It seemed like we were in this vicious cycle, just going round and round in circles, not on the same page, not speaking the same language, when my husband was able to reveal to me a terrible history of childhood abuse at the hands of the Catholic Church. Now, this changed everything for us because we finally were able to work on something that we could put our fingers on. We had identified that key piece to the puzzle that we just couldn't seem to get past. However, it was a long journey. It was a journey where we were often working off script. There was not a lot of guidance to be had for wife supporters who were supporting a husband with childhood trauma. So I have spent the last 8 years working with my husband through his childhood trauma recovery. I have spent countless hours researching the limited amount of work that is out there for survivors, and I have done lots of things through trial and error and interviewing other wives who are in similar situations to identify some real life tools that can work in your marriage. So what is this sneaky trauma response? A lot of us are very aware of anger being a trigger, of criticism or perceived criticism, of conflict or feeling rejected as being a common trigger. However, there is one that snuck up on me that I never really identified before, and that was feeling dismissed. For trauma survivors, feeling dismissed can be very triggering because it reminds them of their past experiences where their feelings were ignored or in some cases invalidated. So I had some experiences where I was not understanding what was going on with some of the conversations I was having with my husband, and then I saw this post by Dr. Glenn Patrick Doyle, who does an amazing job of putting into words what trauma survivors would like to tell us about what they're experiencing. And this is what he said. He said, feeling dismissed by someone important to us can be a serious trigger for complex trauma survivors. It's more than feeling invisible. It's feeling we are seen. We're just not important enough to take seriously. Yeah, that'll bring us back to some not great places. This was very eye-opening for me because I realized that some of the conversations that I was having with my husband, I may and probably was making him feel dismissed, that I didn't understand his feelings, or that we weren't on the same team. I was able to have a conversation saying, I'm sorry that you're feeling dismissed, that it was not my intent, and I am absolutely 100% here to listen to you. The other thing that I was able to express is that we were on the same team, that I was there to work on things with him just like he wanted to work on things with me. And just by having a few of those conversation starters, I was able to see him relax and let those emotions of him feeling triggered by that just become easier and calmer. I wanted to talk about it today because I think that that is one of those trauma responses that I think has been occurring in the past with my husband and I, but that I've never really delved that deep into it or understood it that well until I read that post. And I am hoping that you can start to see if there are times when this is also coming up in your marriages, because it's kind of sneaky. It's not an easy one to identify as a spouse. So I hope you found this helpful, and if you did, I want you to check out my website at www.daniellesebastian.com. I am 100% committed to creating a mission of wives who are supporting their husband through childhood trauma recovery so that we can be there for each other. And if you are suffering in silence, it's time for you to get the support that you need.